Hello everyone. Thank you for attending Part 4, Chapter 2 of Defining the Occult. Today we're going to look at some of the pioneering magicians who laid the formats and the groundworks for many of the occult customs and traditions that we practice still even today. First and foremost of these, we're going to take a look at Dr. John Dee, a man of great brilliance, and his assistant, the very psychic black magician, Edward Kelly. The infamous partnership of Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly would excel to the point where they would create an entire magical system known as Enochian. There are many influences of Enochian that survive even today in our occultic world. From Satanism to the Kabbalah, Enochian became a system in which keys were employed to evoke angelic beings, the divine spirits of God. Dr. John Dee would excel at his university and become a leading member in the court of coming Queen Elizabeth. However, he was in prison for 2 years during the reign of Mary Tudor. Mary Tudor, Queen of Scots, would in time eventually become sick and die. In 1558, she would pass on, freeing Dr. John Dee to perform his magics freely in the court of Elizabeth. He would become Elizabeth's chief astrologer. He would excel at cartography and mathematics. He was excellent in the fields of alchemy and even chemistry, having massive influence throughout the courts of Europe, and of course, being protected by the court of Elizabeth. Dr. John Dee would become a covert spy, and he would coin the term the British Empire. Very meticulous and remarkable in his studies. However, he would suffer from a depression in time, trying to unlock the secrets of the universe, being inspired by Copernicus and many others. He would find a literal godsend of sorts when he discovered a book known as the Stregnaographia, which was a poem and an evocational grimoire mixed into one. Many magical formulae were unraveled in the Stregnaographia when he met up with the famous black magician, necromancer, and scrying specialist Edward Kelly. That Dr. John Dee was able to get more comprehensive in his systematic work. In time, being spied upon by others inside the court of Elizabeth who had protected him, he became distant from her and traveled to Poland. There was a prophecy made by his wife that should he continue the scrying operations with Edward Kelly, ill fortune would befall him. And sure enough, in time, during the cultic sexual escapades between the wife of Edward Kelly and himself, things would definitely become unraveled.
He was trying to find the very essence of life. He was trying to find the secrets of the universe. And for John Dee, that meant communing with angels, communing with demons, risking his soul.
The angel told us, "I will open to thee the secrets of nature and the riches of the world. Many thousand secrets in which you are still yet but children.
This was the same language that was revealed to Enoch, who in biblical tradition was the first person to speak with God after the fall of man. The language, it is said, is the power by which we were all made, by which nature...
Mathers, a great occultist. Dion Fortune, W.B. Yeats, and the infamous Aleister Crowley. These are some of the other people I would like to discuss in today's chapter. Let's talk about first Madame Blavatsky, who was a nobleman out of Russia and developed a system of his theosophy. Unfortunately for Madame Blavatsky, she was exposed for fraud and never quite recovered, dying shortly after. However, theosophy thrived in India. Then there was, of course, Samuel MacGregor Mathers, who contributed to the writing and the development and translation of the Goetia, the Lesser Key of Solomon, a consort of Aleister Crowley's. MacGregor Mathers being a famous contributive occultist. Then Dion Fortune, a master of divination and other writings. Dion Fortune was quite the occultist for a woman and developed several systems of the tarot. And let's not forget W.B. Yeats, who was a rival of Crowley's, and quite frankly disdained him and tried to prevent him from entering further into the ranks of the Golden Dawn. But Crowley persisted, and in the end would go through the ranks of the Golden Dawn very quickly and develop his own magical orders. In the end, he would become a 33rd degree Mason initiated. Crowley was known as the Great Beast by his mother and was associated with prostitutes and lewdness and all sorts of sex magic practices. He would develop his own systems and, quite frankly, would become the greatest occultist known to the modern day. His systems and stylizations and writings, such as magic and the Book of the Law, would persist. He would make many associations famous. His poetry would become well-renowned. It would be something of an enigma, some of it even prophetic. Aleister Crowley would be known as the wickedest man on earth, the Great Beast, the number 666. He was adventuresome. He had several lovers and a couple of wives, and multituous children, some out of wedlock, many the bastard children, if you will. His first child died in an unfortunate event after hiking across China with his wife. He fled from them and abandoned, going to Hong Kong to experience a liaison with a former lover. Returning to England, he received word of his child's death. He would eventually make great associations, occultic and otherwise, surpassing his peers and his consorts, becoming initiated as a 33rd degree Mason even. And in time, he would write a multitude of books. Aleister Crowley would influence entertainers, movie stars. It was said he could potentially be the grandfather of the Bushes, the presidents of the United States of America, as their grandmother certainly spent time with Crowley and engaged in some of his sexual orgies. Some of the people associated him as being lewd and, quite frankly, perverted. He had homosexual relationships as well as heterosexual. Well, for me, I'd have to say the reason why I got into the occult was I had a series of strange experiences, and I must admit some of them were quite unexplainable, and I wanted answers to some of these questions, several of them. particular, the reason why I experienced a ghost phenomenon, what people would call paranormal per se, I experienced something when I was very young. I was out west. I lived on the West Coast for a while. And I experienced the ghost of other children at a home where I was at. And I couldn't identify them as ghosts at that particular time. And there were several other experiences. I found out the street I lived on, it's a small elevated hill in Cincinnati, was a desecrated Indian burial ground. And I still may have friends living on that street. I want to note at the top was where the burial chambers were uncovered and desecrated. Look up the records. Unfortunately, a lot of the findings were lost, and I experienced things in that house that just simply could not be explained. Also, I've lost a lot of friends and a lot of family. Wars, pestilence, disease, all sorts of evil business in the world. And I'm supposed to believe there's a kind or loving person. It's not necessarily that I blame God or the devil, as many people do. Woes in the world. I just don't blame either of them. I acknowledge the fact, except within the dimensions of our mind, neither one exists. Well, when I first started being interested and thinking that the occult was the direction I wanted to go, and there certainly wasn't a lot of material generally available. And even in a major city like Cincinnati, I mean, very much a conservative Christian vibe there. And so it was very limited what you could buy. I think I've seen a copy of the Satanic Rituals once before I was familiar with Satanism and the Little Professors. But they wouldn't sell it to me. The woman gave me a lecture and told me that, basically I was going to hell. The one I was actually able to get my hands on eventually was a old wore-out copy of Paul Husson's Mastering Witchcraft, and it was a godsend to me in researching material. I mean, they had some stuff on some very Christianized points of view on Druidism at the Cincinnati Public Library. You'd have to metro ride downtown to even get your hands on it and read it while you were there. So it was a really different sort of thing, and I understood, my Uncle C and I picked it up. He was at the bookstore with me, and he said, your mom had that book, Hope you know what you're getting into. It's true, I didn't always live at home or with my parents necessarily, I got around a little bit. I lived on the West Coast too, and seen some things out there and was exposed to some things out there. And but wherever I went, I had a stringent, strict religious upbringing there for a while, and I was forced to go to church and made feel guilty later on when I wasn't as forced, just by the look of disappointment on the faces of those that I loved when I would not. And for me, church was not a good experience. The religious circle was not a good experience. If there was more time, I would elaborate more, but let's just say it was very much not a good experience for me. And I went on to get into the occultic fields of paganism and Kabbalah, looked into Wicca a bit. All in all, what did it for me was Satanism, and the reason I chose it was because for me it made the most sense. and also the blasphemy appealed to me. The fact that it would have the gumption and the audacity to blasphemize the stuff that had been crammed down my throat all these